Hey folks, it's Sam, and I'm doing this live video today. I'm going to be talking about the unprecedented um, combustion that we're going to be seeing over the next month or so between Venus and Mars. As you see, they're here in Sagittarius right now. This is the 7th here of um, of February, and you can see they're like within a couple degrees. They're going to get exactly close, and then they're going to dance around the same degrees for about a month. Very unprecedented. So we're going to talk about that today and what that will mean. I also want to let people know to like, subscribe, join the channel. If you like this kind of content and you want to share it with others, please, as I say, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell to get updated and notified of when I'm going live again, and leave a comment here again because it helps, move the videos up in the searches and whatnot. And also, if you watch these things on other platforms like, Facebook and, Twitter or other places, please also, like and share them in those platforms as well. And I also just want to let people also know that I am engaged in doing an upcoming course on not just beginning Vedic astrology, but also for those who have gone through my courses before, or those of you who have been looking and sort of dabbling in Vedic astrology for a while, but you want to actually get more organized and see how the entire practice is really laid out from beginning to end. I'm teaching over 2 weekends beginning course, but it's called Begin, Reset, and Restore, which again, if you're an absolute beginner, it'll be helpful for sure, because it'll help to organize all of the material for you. But also, if you've gone through my courses or other courses and you want to just see everything laid out again properly and put into context, I'm going to start with the astronomy, the sacred sky, of course, the zodiacs, all of that, then how all of that filters down into what's called Sankhya philosophy, all of the frameworks and structures of not just Indian astrology, but yoga and all of that, the common threads that led to me writing this book, Yoga and Vedic Astrology. And then I'm going to get into the planets and the signs and how the zodiac is interpreted through planets and signs with all of those universal frameworks, then into how those things become the houses and the forms of our life, how all of that unfolds. Then things like, the lunar nodes and combustion and retrograde and these other kinds of universal principles, then the nakshatras, then how to make predictions and put it all together, and reading the chart. So I'm going to be joined by 4 great teachers that have graduated from my school and that have gone on to do great work themselves. Dr. Malini Iyer, Elise de Villiers, Alexis Cox, Casey Scott will also be helping me. So again, when you do sign up now, you get 3 bonus courses. Actually, I meant to put this, I just put the link in the description box for those of you who are watching, and you can click there and go. You get 3 bonus classes. One is a way to understand each of the 12 zodiac signs based on the signs of the sun and the moon, which means the sort of Cancer sign is where we have a certain vulnerability, and Leo is where we act very strongly to kind of overcompensate. And wherever you measure that from each of the 12 zodiac signs is going to give a great insight. So again, this bonus 1 is vulnerability and victory. Again, really powerful way to see the chart. And then the bonus number 2 is called Releasing the Serpent, which is a really mind-blowing technique to work through the confusing obsessions of the lunar nodes. It's based on something called the Bhavat Bhavam compounding, which again really teaches you a lot of principles and puts them into practice. And then the other bonus class is called Great Consultation Course. So those of you who are doing consultations, already doing readings, or want to really know how to do them well, this is also a course, and it's available now. It's available to watch right now. All 3 of these classes, about 12 hours of bonus classes when you register now for it. So again, you get these 8 powerful 2.5-hour classes taught over 2 weekends. And again, they're like lively discussions between me and my advanced teachers. So it's not just me lecturing. It's a very lively conversation. the 3 bonus courses that are available immediately when you go and register. So I hope you take me up on that. It's definitely something that people have already registered for. There's close to 60 people already signed up, and I'm sure you'd really enjoy it as well. So let's get to today's topic as well. This is very important because we have as we can see here, I have this chart now for February 13th, and you can see, we're starting on the 7th, and this is on the 7th, 1630, 1840. So Mars is like 2 degrees under Venus. Then over the next couple days, because Venus is just newly turned direct, it's not moving very fast. So you see Mars is going to actually overtake it and pass it in the sky. And then Venus catches up and overtakes it. You see Mars is even going to be ahead of Venus. Even this is on February 27th, but then Venus is going to catch up and overtake Mars. Now, again, you can see this is by even March 9th. They're still within 1 degree of each other. Look, so I'm looking to see, so they're not without, so even by, this is the 5th, so this is March 11th, it's still 1 degree. And then, because this is, because Venus is 11:15, Mars is 10:20. Now, finally, by March 12th, they're more than 1 degree, but still 1 degree. There's still exact combustion. There's still exact conjunction, even through much of March. Here, it's still only 3 degrees, and that's by the end of March. So Venus and Mars are just dancing here now. They're finally getting some separation, but even this is only 4 degrees, and this is by the end of March. So again, we got a couple months of just really intense Venus-Mars interaction here. And right now, as I'm recording this, it's on February 7th, where, Mars is starting to catch Venus. But this, if you're feeling some intensity and frustration and, sort of protection of your boundaries and all like that, this could definitely be one of the reasons. I've definitely been feeling it for sure. And even though there might be, even some desire to want to feel connected and whatnot, because, the planets had been retrograde. Venus and Mercury were both retrograde. They start to turn direct, and we want to kind of be diplomatic or reach out and whatnot, but it might be tough. It might be tough for a while. It might be tough for a couple months, or at least, again, we just saw by the end of March, even the planets are still, that's a month and a half, easy. They're still going to be within like 1 degree of each other. Now, I'm not going to get so hung up on the rules of planetary war. This is a aspect of Vedic astrology called planetary war, or Graha Yuddha. And there are different rules for planetary war. Most of them actually revolve around the eclipse, it's not declination, it's the vertical longitude, right? Not necessarily ecliptic longitude, like where they are on the ecliptic, but actually where they are vertically. Like, you can see, okay, here's like 2 pens. Like if you have one of them here and then the other one like here, they're right at the same degree of ecliptic longitude, of vertical longitude, right? It'd be like that. But because the ecliptic is skewed, even something that looks like that, might be like, it might look like this with ecliptic longitude. That could be a conjunction in ecliptic longitude because the ecliptic is sideways. Anyway, it'd take forever to explain the astronomy of it. But the principle is really of when the planets when their rays start to mix, and when one planet kind of looks like both. We had it a couple years ago. I think it was even on the solstice, wasn't it? When Jupiter and Saturn came together and their rays literally joined. It's also called occulting, like when one passes over top the other. Remember that a couple years ago? I think it was December 21st, 2020. I think it was the first day of I think it was the first day of winter 2020 or something, when Jupiter and Saturn both occupied the exact same space, and they weren't in the exact same ecliptic longitude, but they were in the exact same point vertically in the sky where they appeared to be exactly the same. So this was this is really the principle of planetary war. This is the main principle. And there's a lot of different rules. There's ones that say Venus always wins. Again, I don't necessarily think that's correct. There are some that say the one in the highest, again, it tends to usually go by ecliptic longitude. Like, again, this is 1846 of ecliptic longitude. This is 16 of ecliptic longitude. Ecliptic just means the path the planets are passing, but they pass this way. So again, but they're often at different, like, for example, again, the ecliptic is angled. So you could have planets that look like this in the sky, and they could be at exactly the same point of ecliptic longitude. And this one that's higher in the sky could be here. So it looks like this, but this one is further along in ecliptic longitude, even though this one is further ahead in the sky because of the way the ecliptic is tilted. So you could have ones that look like this to your eye, and one of them is actually further along in ecliptic longitude, but not in vertical declination. Declination isn't the right word. I get the word mixed up, to be honest with you. I should get the terminology better, but that's the principle. So anyway, when you look at the Surya Siddhanta, again, this is one of those things where I have to go back and not relearn it because I understand the principle, but I have to go back. It's very clear in the Surya Siddhanta what the criteria are. And every time I go back and look at it again, I have to go back and relearn it again. Because especially the terminology, because it's just not something that stays in my head for some reason. But there are many different ways to reckon with what, how to determine which one is more powerful, quote, which one, quote, wins the war. Well, what you can know is that the energies mix, and winning the war just means that one of them is transferring its karmas to the other. I'll give you an example. In fact, I wasn't planning on doing this, but I'll do it anyway. Let me bring up there's a famous example that is used a lot. Oops. And that is the chart of Hitler, of course. When in doubt, evoke Hitler, right? Let me see. And in Hitler's chart, let me see. He has a very prominent example of planetary war. There it is. And let me make the chart look like this. One big chart. Okay. So he has a prominent planetary war up here with with Mars and Venus. You see that? Exact same. His Mars is 2404 and his Venus is 2423. Now, there's people who have said that you use the one in highest degree here to win the war, which would be Mars. And there are which would be Venus, because Venus is higher. You see, 2423. This would show on two criteria that Venus should win the planetary war, because one of the criteria is also that Venus always wins because Venus is always brightest. So again, if you keep in mind the idea that it's looking to see that the two planets are going to join their light, and so the one that's the brightest is going to win because Venus is almost always going to be brighter in magnitude, especially brighter than Mars. So in the sky at this time, now again, you have to understand, they could have looked like this. They probably look like this in the sky, like I just said, because this is ecliptic longitude, and you wouldn't even be able to tell that there was a planetary war because if you look at the declination and how far it was above the midpoint on the ecliptic, it probably looked like this, right? But Venus is higher in longitude, or I should say further along. It's not higher, but the degree is higher. It's further along on the toward the east. 2423 away from zero Aries, and Mars was only 2404. So Venus was further along in ecliptic longitude, and it's brighter. But plus, it's also retrograde. So it should have won the war. Okay. And there are people who say that Hitler's chart is proof that Venus wins the war. But again, the way I've always interpreted this and what I've seen usually is that the one in the lower longitude, lower ecliptic longitude, which is Mars, it's under this one. So it cuts it out. It takes the karma away from this one, and that the one in lower ecliptic longitude wins the war. Now, again, there are people who think this is wrong, and that's fine. You can think it. But this is one of the charts. There's a couple other charts, and I'm not going to just do case studies. But the important thing is in the interpretation. And the reason is the interpretation, because here's the way I see it, especially looking at the dashas. Hitler had his Venus dasha, and when Hitler had his Venus dasha, he was an artist. His Venus dasha was when he lived in Vienna and designed furniture and all this other stuff. He had a Venus dasha. And in his Venus dasha, he was an artist. And everybody knows he was an artist, right? But what happened? Okay, he went into sun dasha, then moon dasha, then Mars dasha. He became a dictator. And what happens is the planet that wins the war winds up taking the karma from the other one and using it toward their own kind of purpose, you might say. So Hitler, the artist, which shows by this Venus, was actually captured by Hitler, the dictator, which is the Mars. So the way I interpret this is Mars is defeating Venus in the planetary war. And if Venus would have won, then he would have been the artist, where the qualities of Mars would have been interpreted by Venus. So he would have done some kind of art. He would have been like an artist. By the way, he designed furniture, and it was very angular and very kind of modern, and really actually even kind of sparse and Spartan, like you might say Mars, kind of Mars type art, because it's still in Aries. But he would have been an artist using a kind of Mars aesthetic. But instead, he wasn't. He was a dictator using a lot of Venus aesthetic. Now, what do I mean by that? When you think of Nazi Germany, you think of that look. In fact, that look has inspired people. The swastika. He was keenly aware of the architecture, the aesthetic, the swastika, the pageantry of the armband and the jackboots and the whole kind of romantic imagery and literal art of the Third Reich. It was nothing short of a artistic endeavor. And it's hard to think of it any other way. But now the art and this aesthetic sense, because again, Hitler was an artist. He had an aesthetic sense. You cannot see it any other way. But the aesthetic sense was now captured and defeated by the dictator. Now the beauty is being captured and reinterpreted and transformed into the machinations of dictatorship and militarism and tyranny and all that other stuff. So again, this is how I see this planetary war, for example. And that again, Mars is defeating Venus in the planetary war. Mars is the one with the lower ecliptic longitude. Now, again, it's controversial. People are going to say that's wrong because in Surya Siddhanta it says this and that, and it's true. But again, I've done this several different ways. I've interpreted. There's so many different rules. There was an astrologer years ago who compiled a bunch of different rules and contradictory rules for what the planetary war, how to analyze the planetary war. So anyway, this is the basis of the planetary war. Is it's mainly trying to interpret the planets when they get right next to each other, right? That's really the thing that it's looking at. And again, but underneath it all, so aside from this, frankly, I didn't even plan on saying all this, but I don't plan a lot. But aside from this, what you can know for sure is these energies get mixed together. Again, you can see how Mars and Venus and Hitler is like mixed together, right? Is it this Spartan kind of art, or is it this this beauty that is meant to be like propaganda and domination. Like they kind of get mixed together, right? And whichever one wins, that's a matter of personal thing. But whenever I'm doing a reading with someone, I don't necessarily draw that much distinction. I see this very close conjunction. And when you see them in a planetary war, a war is a war. So we don't have to be, this is an academic pursuit for astrologers to like say which one and whatnot. By the way, I've had some arguments with some astrologers before and used this example, and they argued exactly the opposite. And it didn't go so well. They didn't really like that I was, because they actually argued that no, that Venus won the war. And I'm like, I don't think so. You could look at the dashas. When he was in Venus dasha, he was an artist. When he went to Mars, he was a dictator. And you had, I use the exact same thing. I'm like, so I don't think that's right. Anyway, but that's for astrologers to debate academically. For most of us, and like what we're talking about now, these two energies just get mixed together and they're at war with each other. So that's the thing we can know, right? Is that Mars and Venus are having a war within us a little bit. And the war is happening right now in Sagittarius. So again, like we said, you know, this is about principles and what inspires us, and that we're, you know, in many ways, when Venus is in Sagittarius, those qualities of wanting to have, you know, to make a good agreement, to have agreements with each other, to, you know, to really negotiate an even sort of agreement, whether it's a romantic agreement or business agreement or whatever it is, we have these agreements, right? And we want them to be fair. You get this much, I get that much, and we feel good about it. We don't feel like, oh, you're taking advantage of me. We know how to negotiate a good agreement, right, with Venus, and we feel good about the compromise that we make, right? Now, of course, we're always testing it a little bit. As soon as it feels like, oh, wait a minute, you said this, now I don't feel so good about this anymore. The one that doesn't feel good about it anymore is Mars. Mars is like, well, wait a second here. You said this, now I need to defend that boundary here because I was supposed to get this much. Now I only got this much. And Mars comes up to ask for what we deserve, to defend the thing that that you said was right. You said this was what we're negotiating, and now that's not what's happening. So now I need to ask for what I expect and what I deserve, or not. Or maybe I won't ask for it because I'm afraid that if I ask for it, I'm going to break the connection that we have. And I want the connection more than I want the fairness. Now, again, this is a trade-off we get with Venus. I talk about this all the time. I want the connection more than I care about the fairness, at least right now. But a month from now, maybe I'm not going to care about the agreement more than the fairness. And then I'm going to get angry. I'm going to get angry because it's been unfair for a month. And even though I didn't speak up a month ago before I was angry, now I'm angry. And I'm speaking up now, right? And so this is how we can also get like off base about Mars and Venus. So we also have to look at the signs they're in and this kind of stuff. And again, in Sagittarius, we can tend to, again, be sort of gracious and want to like, okay, but I do see the bigger picture. I do see the bigger picture here. And I know that the person was well-meaning and philosophically, I get all of this. So we might be tempted to like be, okay, well, let's just, you know, I'm okay with trying to negotiate the agreement or to do this kind of thing. But then but we got to be careful because Mars is there. And we might just be like, okay, you know what? No, I'm not. I am still a little too fired up around my principles. And again, Mars in Sagittarius is very, very fired up about what's right or wrong. And, you know, we might be a little less forgiving than we think, even though, again, Venus is moving forward now. It's in Sagittarius, which, again, is generally looking at the bigger picture. If Mars wasn't there, it might be easier to just kind of be like, okay, it's no big thing. But since Mars is also there now, you know, Mars is pretty fired up around our principles when it's in Sagittarius. So again, that's going on now. And, you know, it's been going on for a while. Even if we go back, you know, this is January 31st. It's still pretty close. Again, this is like 6 degrees. That's hardly nothing. You know, February 1st, 2nd, 3rd, even February 3rd, you know, you're talking less than 4 degrees. Here we are now on the 7th. You know, it's like basically 2 degrees Mars is from Venus. This is practically the same thing as the combustion. It might as well be, particularly how we're generally feeling it. Now it's getting closer. And again, the closer it gets, the more immediate it is. But watch what happens when I start running this. It's going to close, and then it's going to stay within a degree for like, I was looking at this last night when I was looking if I should make a video. I was looking at what's happening, and I was watching it close within a degree, and then I'm waiting for it to separate again. So here's like, in case you can see, this is February 10th, and it's not quite a degree yet. It's like 1 degree and 10 seconds of arc. Now on the 11th, okay, now it's within 1 degree. So this is from February 11th, 1932, 2026. So it's less than 1 degree. Now watch how long Venus and Mars stay within 1 degree. This is from February 11th. I think it's March 11th. Look, all these days. Look, it's less than 1 degree the whole time. Now Mars is past, but then Venus starts to speed up a little bit. Look at this: 2917, 2953. This is 2 weeks later. Now they move into Capricorn again. 139 of Venus, 207 of Mars. This is February 28th. We started on the 11th. Keep going. I think we just did it was March. Look, this is still 551. Look, exact. Now Venus is about to pass Mars. Exact here. They've been within 1 degree since February 11th. This is March 5th. Exact again. Because again, Mars just goes past Venus, and then Venus comes up and just passes it again. Now, again, I haven't seen this close. I'm sure it happens if Mars catches Venus right as it's about to turn direct again. But this is like unprecedented, where Mars happens to be just at the perfect speed, just as Venus is turning direct. Mars happens to just be there, just enough to go past it for like barely a degree and pass it so that Venus can come and pass it again. I've never seen this before. Again, it goes all the way 9th. Now here's the 9th. Venus is now 924. Mars is 850. So you see Venus starting to separate, but it's still within 1 degree. I think it was the 11th. 11:15. Mars is 1020. Yeah, and then by the 12th, it's more than 1 degree, but it's still 1 degree in 5 seconds. So from February 11th to March 12th, they're literally within 1 degree. But again, you might as well say, if you want to extend it to like 2 degrees or 3 degrees, we're already at about 3 degrees. And you look and see here, we're now at the end of March. This is still barely a little more than, well, it's 2 degrees and 50 seconds. But again, that's still like right next to each other in the sky, right? 2357, 2006. So now it's about 4 degrees here, 2136, 26. Okay, so now it's 4.5 degrees, but that's the end of March. So as you just seen, this is like really, really fast planetary war happening within 1 degree for like a month. Again, now you have to understand something. Usually planetary war happens a day or 2 at the most within 1 degree. It's usually Mars is here and Venus goes dunk, and then you'll have like 1 day where, let's say you'll have 1 day. In fact, we can just look at Hitler's chart here real quick. If you just like, I'll just change the birth time a day. So here it was this day. If I go back the day before, 23, 21, 24, 48, they're not in the war anymore because it's more than 1 degree. This is pretty normal, right? Go forward. Now they're in the war. The next day, they're almost out of it. It's barely 1 day. Mars is now past. It's kind of a day, but it's a little more than a day. Barely a day that the planets are in a planetary war, right? Barely a day usually. Now this one, Venus is moving retrograde and Mars is moving forward. So they're usually a little more than that. It might be a couple of days. Venus and Mars actually, in a normal sense, they move similar. The speeds aren't that different. Like they can track pretty close to to 1 degree based on where they are in the sky, for a few days. But usually it's no more than a couple days that planets are that close, right? And Mars and Venus can be within each other within 1 degree for a couple of days usually. You never see this tracking for a month. I've never seen planets within 1 degree for a month like this. I mean, that's just crazy. So that's that's pretty intense. And so this is this is the real way to see how or to really understand kind of what's going on here for the next couple of at least the next month or so, with these transits and what you're doing, what you might be feeling, especially about frankly trying to resolve difficult personal issues with people. If there's situations where maybe you might want to, you feel like you might want to resolve something with someone, but you're a little too fired up or whatever, it might not be the best time. Or maybe it's a time, by the way, it might also be a time to just realize that, this is never going to work out anyway, and kind of move on. Again, these are different aspects of the same coin. Depends on how much something is worth investing in. And if, like, for example, you might have situations where, you might tend to go in and out of a friendship with someone, and now's not the time to really get into all that stuff. But then there might be other situations where you're not really that, where you don't really get along, let's say, or have that much connection. And it might be good to even just realize, you know what, I don't know, this is kind of beating a dead horse a little bit, and it's better to just kind of cut your losses a little bit. And maybe if it comes back in your life at some point, that's fine. But there's also that kind of way to kind of philosophically split, at least right now, while Venus is in Sagittarius with Mars, Venus and Mars in Sagittarius, until, like you see, this is, again, look how close this is. This is February 18th. It's right at the end. I think it's the 26th that they go in, 25th. Mars goes in. Oh, yeah. Both Venus and Mars go in on the February 26th. So February 26th, they both wind up going in, right? So you could see that they both go into Capricorn there. And so between now and February 26th, like until the end of the month, that's like 19 days. They're both in Sagittarius. Now, you would say that in Capricorn, it would probably be a little more, a little more peaceful, I guess, because Capricorn, but it's also more, more sort of guarded, I would say, in this context, because, Capricorn is where we're, where we're more protective. Now, again, Mars is exalted in Capricorn, but you have to understand something. The power of Mars isn't to get out there and fight, right? Mars in Sagittarius is much more likely to fight. Now, again, we're going to be fighting for causes that we believe in. So, like, for example, if you start doing things now, you could easily get into this kind of fight or whatever, and you might be right. It's a righteous fight. But again, usually we don't want to righteously fight with Venus people in our life, because we're trying to get along with them, right? So again, it's better that we fight, that we literally get in there and fight for things that are bigger, that are righteous causes. And that's usually not the people in our life trying to change and battle with them because of how they treated us. That's not what Mars is really wanting to fight. That's not Sagittarius. And by the way, this is why when Mars goes into Capricorn, it's the real power of Mars, because rather than fighting those outer battles, we're actually more careful and more strategic. We could still be fighting for that righteous cause, but we're more strategic about it in Capricorn. And, we also may find that others aren't as fired up either, and less prone to reactive and things like that, and, being reactive and whatnot. So these are the things to really think about. And again, Venus will definitely improve in Capricorn, because Venus is definitely better in Capricorn. Those qualities of Saturn also bring about more accountability. And, one of the things that we want, and that might not be, that might be in short supply while Venus is going through Sagittarius, is people are more prone to justify themselves. Like, let's say that there is agreements that we're not happy with, and we try to bring them up while Mars and Venus are in Sagittarius. We're going to be a little bit frustrated and irritated about it, around these principles, which is Sagittarius, and maybe ready to kind of call it out. But Venus is also in Sagittarius, where it's like, no, I was right. My agreements are right. I'm justified in the agreement. Like what you want. So Venus is Venus is also much more, again, justified, or feeling justified and feeling, that way in Sagittarius, and much less likely to feel like, for example, feel the consequences of, let's say, a bad agreement or not being respectful or whatever. Venus is not likely to feel so much of that accountability that maybe you would want someone to feel anyway when it's in Sagittarius. It's not. It's just going to be like, well, what? Well, what's the big deal? I'm justified in it too. When Venus gets into Capricorn, and by the way, it's one of the reasons why it does better there in Capricorn, because we're more reflective and we're thinking, oh, maybe I didn't honor my agreement very well there. And we feel it's not necessarily guilt, but some of it is guilt. We feel the pressure and the stress and the feeling of the loss, and we're more likely to ponder the consequences of the agreements that we make when Venus goes into Capricorn. That's why it's more powerful there, and it's frankly not as powerful in Sagittarius, where we tend to get more justified and whatnot. And it's not that it's wrong to be justified, but Venus isn't really ultimately an energy in us that's trying to justify what we're doing. We're trying to connect with Venus, and the Venus part of us would rather be accountable for the agreement, even for us messing up the agreement, if we can have the connection again, right? We don't, the Venus part of us doesn't mind being accountable for the agreement and going, yeah, you're right. I feel bad about that. I feel the consequences of how I messed up the agreement, and feeling okay with that compromise there, with then feeling okay saying that and being like, you're right. I get that now. I feel that now. And so again, that real kind of reckoning is beneficial for the Venus part of us. Venus wants to just say, okay, and have the connection. So again, this is how the planets in different signs operate. The Venus part of us doesn't necessarily feel very confident, even with all the things we're defending when it's in Sagittarius. Defending like, oh no, I'm right to have asked for that, and I was right to demand that part of the thing. Even when we would say that, even the Venus part of us saying that doesn't, like, that's not what Venus even really wants. Venus actually wants the connection. And in Capricorn, much more likely to be accountable for it. I know people are just firing off questions. As you can see, I'm really not answering them, so you can keep saying it, but I'm sorry. I don't have time. I'm just going to go. So anyway, this is the thing. So once it changes and moves into Capricorn, this part, like after, when we get into February 26th and things like that, and after that, it's much more possible that we're going to sit in and feel into the power and the truth of even what the agreements might look like. And of course, Mars is also exalted here. So I think in general, this whole thing is going to improve by the end of February. Just because, again, Mars becomes exalted, but Venus is also, as I say, much more accountable, much more in a place that's harmonious with what the Venus part of us wants, which is the connection in Capricorn. Like, yeah, and willing to like be accountable for it. Also be sensitive to others, because again, we can be fired up, our own Venus fired up about, you should have done this, and get in that even while it's just in Sagittarius. Whereas in Capricorn, be more like, well, okay, I understand. I understand why, even though I didn't like that part, you are doing it this way. We slow down a little bit, and we more thoughtful, more sensitive maybe to the thing in general. So just in general, Venus improves and Mars after February. So I'm going to take a quick drink here, but before, as I do, look at the screen again. I just want to say, like, share, and subscribe to this if you and it really helps a lot to do that. People often ask me why there aren't more people subscribed and whatnot. I don't know, but go ahead and do your part and share if you appreciate me doing these things. All right, so that's a big part of what I have to answer this question. What does choose not drama look like? Ruth, come on. What do you think it looks like? Choose not drama. Come on. I can only help you so much. Choose not drama. Anyway, so now again, but what's going to happen here as it goes into Capricorn, oops, I just hit real time. Let's go forward. Is that, we have other planets also shift here. By this time, the sun is going to be up here in Aquarius. It's going to be with Jupiter. They also get closer to Saturn. And again, so Saturn is very much about again, being accountable and consequences and being sensitive. Because again, this is the real virtue of the sign of Capricorn in general, is that we are accountable. Again, Mars is, we're fired up to protect ourselves. And it's often, this battle between Mars and Saturn, as far as what we're doing to face and overcome our difficulties. Because Mars and Saturn really show those two energies more than anything. Mars is where we're kind of fighting to, is where we're fighting to change something that's not fair, so to speak. And Saturn is where we are trying to protect or avoid something, right? And, with Mars, kind of fighting to change things, again, both of those energies we need to use toward ourselves and to fight to change ourselves, so to speak, not change something external. And again, but it's hard to do. Again, when someone, even like I just was, making a joke about what does not drama look like, it means don't turn everything into somebody else's fault that you're going to fight with and confront them and blow things up. Again, it doesn't mean you can't renegotiate the boundary or say the thing. You can say the thing. It might break the connection. But again, the problem is that we often want the connection and we want to fight. We want to do the same thing. We want to fight with the person that the thing they did was wrong. I'm going to fight with you about it. So I still want the connection, Venus, and I still want to fight, Mars. So again, this is what makes people not want to be associated with us. Don't be surprised if that's what you want. You will still want the connection and you want to fight. Then you're going to need to be around people who also want to fight. And some people don't want to fight. They get tired of fighting and then they don't want to be around you anymore if that's what you're doing, because they realize that it's just time wasting and energetic wasting to fight over things. Particularly, it's usually the same fight over and over again with somebody. So Mars, in a more evolved sense, isn't about trying to fight other people. Again, it's the courage and the energy to fight and to change something in the world that needs to be changed. Right? We get fired up about something that's important. Again, that's why it's powerful in Sagittarius. But again, if it's Venus and the thing I need to fight to change is somebody else and what they're doing to me, that's the wrong energy. That's the wrong use of Mars. Okay? If you're not aware of it, it is. Okay? You don't need to fight with them. You can just change the equation and end it and preserve your energy and power and fight to change your weakness. Okay. So that's what Mars needs to do. And Saturn also. Again, Saturn is where we're fearful. And so we try to control a situation. So rather than try to control a situation or control people or manipulate or dominate them, again, it's a different energy with Saturn. We need to dominate, control, manipulate our own energy and be simple and present and still and accountable. All of these things are evolving within us. They're evolving within ourselves, and whatnot. So, this is what we're meant to do. And by the way, I'm going to put this link again, and I'm going to see if someone was right or wrong. Someone said they clicked the link and it didn't take them there. And I'm going to click it myself and see, because these are the kinds of things that can at times kind of drive me a little crazy, is when people say things like this, and I know this link works, and then people say the link didn't work. The link didn't work. I just clicked the link, and guess what, folks? The link works. The link works. Please. The link works. So I posted it again. Whoever that was, the link works. Click it. Okay? Really, it does. Maybe there needs to be a space, or so I'll put a space or something, but I just did it again. The link works to this. And again, this class is really great for those of you who are either starting your studies, you haven't started the study yet, and you want to really go more deeply into it, and really see how everything is organized from the very beginning. Again, starting with the astronomy, the sacred connection to the zodiac, and then how all of that sacred wisdom filters down and is organized into what's literally called Sankhya philosophy, which is the same principles of yoga, Ayurveda, all of that, and how the astrology interprets all of that, and then how this then becomes things like the planets, which are literally like the gods, the deities, and then the signs they rule, again, through the zodiac, through the sky, all of these universal principles. Again, if you don't know this, then again, it's great to hear Sam, watch the Sam show every now and then and have me just blabber on. That's great. But you should learn this for yourself. You should understand it. And it's not because you're going to be an astrologer. It's because you should understand this. You should understand that this is who you are. You should understand that this is who you are. One more time. You should understand this is who you are. You are a quality of the sun, the moon, Mars, Mercury, Jupiter, Venus, Saturn, and the nodes. That pure energy filtered through your ego, which the chart shows. The chart shows this illusion that you're under, but you should study and understand the pure energy first, because that's your nature, right? Doesn't matter if you're going to be an astrologer or not. You fill your mind with all kinds of things that don't even benefit you one bit. You should understand how the universe works and who you are, really. So again, it filters down from planet signs, and then once you draw the chart, then astrology houses. Again, this is then the more specific forms of how an astrologer like me can tell how these things work in someone's chart. Then we get into things like the sacred astronomy and the nakshatras and the lunar nodes, and then how to actually read the chart. So again, when you do register for that, and the link works, beginningvedicastrology.com. And again, it's not just a beginning course. It's for all levels, because many people grab little pieces, or even people have gone through my courses before, and then they forget about it and they start doing other things, and it's all becomes a mess again. This is a way to reconnect with it and reconnect with all that, and frankly, reconnect with my latest teachings, because I'm always relearning these things, reorganizing them, right? But when you sign up, you also get these 3 bonus classes. One is the hidden vulnerability and overcompensation strategy of each sign. Again, like if you're Capricorn, the sign of Cancer falls in the 7th house, the sign of Leo in the 8th house. So there's a whole kind of matrix through which you know yourself based on that. If you're Scorpio, the moon rules the 9th house and the sun rules the 10th house. So there's this whole thing that winds up happening that is very powerful and easy to see just based on the nature of the sun and the moon. And by the way, that class is also just a real case study in the differences between the sun and the moon as well, and the differences between masculine and feminine energy. So again, very powerful. Second bonus class is Releasing the Serpent, which is really, frankly, quite a mind-blowing technique on how to work through the obsession and revulsion of Rahu and Ketu based on the house axis that it falls in. And you haven't heard this before, I know, because no one else has talked about this technique called Releasing the Serpent. It's really quite powerful. And And then there's also a bonus class called the Great Consultation Course. So again, you can get all of that. And I definitely encourage people to do it. And as you can see, I'm kind of shameless about talking about these things. It's not about me if you get it or don't get it. Again, I obviously get paid, but you get this transcendent wisdom that I've studied almost everything you can imagine, really, as far as these kind of metaphysical sciences. And there's nothing that really explains all of this like Vedic astrology. And so that I would definitely encourage people to really look into that and understanding this is the nature of consciousness and your nature. So again, that's really the main things that I wanted to talk about here is this this really transcendent one of a kind and unprecedented transit of Venus and Mars for the next month or so, next month and a half or so. It's going to be within, well, as you can see, even into the end of March, which is, like if we go even here, we see it's, well, now it's, by the end of March, by March 28th, it's, this is about 5 degrees. But even that's still very close. So we're going to have Mars and Venus together here, very close in this planetary war for quite a while. And so be careful, be aware of how this energy is going to play out in your life. It's definitely something where this, where you have to be careful about the things that you're doing and not to get too fired up, and be careful about, the possibility of destroying connections that you might want to maintain and things like that, because you could be under this choice between Mars wanting to overly defend the boundary and Venus having made compromises and agreements that no longer feel as good to you. And so Mars is now ready to be fired up and battling over them. And then eventually that's not what you want. So anyway, keep that in mind. And please, as I said before, like, share, subscribe to this. It definitely helps, and definitely helps support this, these free classes that I give. And I hope you have a good day.